Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden. Ooh, and here comes the sun. And today we are going to be planting some hardy annual or cool flowers and then also getting some lily bulbs into the ground. Okay, so we are expecting some big weather starting tomorrow. We're expecting 1 to 3 inches of rain, and then 4 days later, we're going to expect another belt of rain. So very exciting. October has been very dry for us, which is highly unusual. So I am excited. But if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know that whenever there's going to be a rainstorm, I typically do a lot of work the day before because I love that the rain waters everything in. So today I'm a little bit behind, but we're going to go ahead and get in some of my hardy annuals or cool flowers. Now, hardy annuals are plants that we go ahead and plant in the fall. They overwinter and then they give us early blooms in the spring. They're plants that can handle the cooler weather. So I typically do a lot of those from seedling, but this group right here is best done by sowing seeds directly into the ground. So let's talk about these. Okay, the first group I'm going to be doing are Larkspur, and I'm going to do 3 different varieties. I'm going to do a dark blue, a fancy smoky eyes, and a light pink, and I'll put photos up for you guys to see it. Larkspur are very tall, beautiful, elegant blooms. They're a line flower, which means they have a long kind of look to them. They tend to come early spring, but they do stay around for quite a while, especially if you continue cutting on them over time. The more you cut on Larkspur, the more blooms it's going to produce. A lot of times it will reseed itself. I have pulled up mine in a certain bed because I'm going to be redoing that bed. So I am wanting to sow these in a new area so that I'll have them for future use. Larkspur don't take a lot of maintenance. I'm just going to put down a good compost before I plant them, and that's it. Not going to worry about anything on them afterwards. I might hit them with some fish emulsion throughout the season, but that's pretty much it. You typically want to get these planted 6 to 8 weeks prior to your first frost, so I am definitely behind on that, but I'm going to go ahead and go for it anyway and see what happens. Okay, the next variety I'm going to be growing is Centuria, and sometimes known as Bachelor's Button, sometimes cornflower type of look. It is a bright blue, beautiful bloom. The blooms are maybe about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. It grows very prolifically, and it also reseeds itself really well. This is, again, one of the plants that we plant in the fall, and then it overwinters and then gives us early spring blooms. So basically, these plants spend the winter growing roots down low. You're not going to see much activity on top. You might see a little bit of green going on, but all the roots are going to be growing down low, and then come spring, it's got this beautiful root system, and it can just burst up and be ready to go right when the warmer weather hits. And then the third variety I'm going to be planting is Ammi, and this particular one is white dill, and I do have a bunch of Ammi that I grow in this garden to my left, and it is basically the chocolate variety is what I call it. It's a mix of mauves and pinks and browns, but this one is more of a white look. And so I'm really excited. Not to be confused with Queen Anne's lace. This is called Ammi. It looks very similar to it, but I'm going to go ahead and get this one planted as well. This will be my first time growing this particular variety. All right, so first we're going to start with laying down some compost in the areas that we're going to be working in, and then we'll get planting. Okay, it's pretty bright today. The sun keeps going in and out of the clouds. And I'm going to be working in this area, which is going to be kind of awkward because I'm leaving these Cosmo plants right now. I am going to go ahead and pull up this Winged Everlasting that I grew this year. I didn't love it. It struggled with mealybugs quite a bit. But, you know, it was fine. I might grow it in years to come. It really just kind of depends. So next I'm going to start by loosening up the soil over here. These raised beds have drip lines to them, and I apologize I'm not looking up at the camera. The sun is intense today. But I'm going to work over here in between the Cosmo plants. The Cosmo plants are annuals that will die back with a frost. Looks like I have some other stuff trying to come over here. But I think on this whole area right here, I'm going to put Larkspur across this area. And I'll do the pink, I think of it as a deep blue or purple, and the fancy smoky eyes. So once I've loosened up the soil here, next thing I want to do is I'm going to come in with a compost and add a layer of fresh compost to the space. And this is a good thing to make sure you're doing to your gardens every year. Get some good compost in there. I mean, I could definitely just throw my plants throw my seeds right into it again. But this is at least ensuring me, whew, look at that wind. This is at least ensuring me that I've put some really good nutrients into this area. And this kind of sinks my drip lines down a little bit. Not too much, but enough that, you know, I'll get less evaporation of water. However, it does make it hard if there's a leak. Makes it hard to find it. Okay, so we're going to work in 3 sections. We're going to do 1 section of smoky eyes, 1 section of dark blue, and 1 section of pink, which I think it's light pink specifically. There is a dark pink variety, which is really pretty. And these don't have to be sowed very deep, about 1/4 of an inch deep. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in here with my trowel, and I'm just going to kind of run a little bit of a line. I'm going to do 3 lines for each variety. These are going to be pretty well packed into one another. It doesn't say how far to do apart. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the deep blue. And basically I'm just going to come in here and sprinkle in. And I'm seeding it pretty heavily, and then I can always thin this out later on. And basically then I'm just going to cover them over like this. Give them a nice firm pat down, and the reason I'm giving it a nice firm pat down is because we are expecting a lot of water. So or a lot of rain. I don't want it to displace it too much. All right, there. We've got our deep blue done. So let's go ahead and do the smoky eyes. It's kind of fun that with such minimal effort you can get such beautiful blooms. And then when these cosmos are done at the end, I'm not going to pull up on them. I'll just cut them at the very base, and then that will keep me from disturbing the soil. All right. And then I'm going to water this in really good, and then these guys are set for the season. Okay, so it's a little bit of an awkward area getting over to where I want to do these. These are the Ammi. They are pretty big plants, so I'm not actually going to do a whole line of succession. I think I'm going to do 5 locations is what I'm thinking. So let me get some of the compost in here. For those of you who saw when I planted my fennel, it's doing beautifully over here. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 5 kind of holes. These are not planted very deep. And I'm going to put several seeds within each of those 5 locations. Like I said, these are pretty big plants. And I don't want to have them take over this bed. But I'm putting several seeds in here with the hope of just getting a few. All right, and then I'm going to cover those over. Like I said, give them a nice firm tap, and we're good to go. Okay, and then the last area I'm going to be working on is this area with the ornamental kale. And some of y'all were asking for an update on this. It's doing pretty well. The bugs have started laying off, and you can see the leaves have started filling in really well. Now, I'm going to do the same approach. This already has compost added to it. So I'm going to do the same approach as the Ammi, and I'm just going to make some little spaces in between here in between the existing plants, because these kale will be harvested long before the centaur needs space. So, or cornflower or bachelor's buttons, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to make some spaces, little openings. These are sewed about 1/4 of an inch deep. And I'm going to put a few in each. I mean, if each of these holes gives me a plant, it would be like a dozen, which if you've planted any kind of bachelor's buttons, you know that that's quite a bit. All right. Get these covered over. Okay. All right. Yay. Okay. That's a good amount of planting done. So I was going to plant up the lilies, but I think I'm actually going to wait on that. And instead I saw that I have a sunflower seeds that need to be harvested. So let's work on that. So generally speaking, when I'm growing sunflowers, I like to leave usually the largest and prettiest sunflower out to kind of die on the vine and produce more seeds for myself. So I've gotten to the point the head is hanging really far over. The shape on top comes off very easily, and I can very easily see all of the seeds below. So I'm going to go ahead and probably just go ahead and cut this whole thing off. And here's the reason I decided to do this instead of the lilies. I think I actually want to put the lilies in this container. And so obviously I need to harvest what's in here and get this taken care of before I can do that. And so I do have some that are not quite ready for harvest. So we'll just go ahead and start with this one first. Let me check this guy over here. This one's ready. Let's get that guy. I don't think that one's ready. Okay, so let's go over to the side and I'll show you what this looks like. Okay, so I've got a container ready to go to catch everything, and what you can see in this top is called chaff, and it's just what's left over from all the petals. So I'm going to move the tray to the side and just brush off the chaff, and when this comes off easily, you know that your seeds are ready, and you can see how easily this all comes off. No big deal. And look at all of the seeds. So I'm looking at next year doing a feature of Tithonia and mixed large-scale sunflowers in front of one of my fences. So saving these is great. So I've done that, and then you can basically just crack this open is what I typically like to do, and then come in and just start pulling. And look at all these massive seeds coming up. It does take a little bit of force to get them in here. I'm lucky that birds did not get to this particular one. So when I was talking, you can always, if there's one in particular you're wanting to save the seeds from, you can put like a mesh bag over the top of it and keep the birds from getting to it. And then also, if you can't get to it fast enough and it starts dropping its seeds, the mesh bag will save all the seeds. So catch some and keep them from dropping to the ground. Some people just allow their sunflower seeds to go ahead and just drop to the ground and then naturally come back next year depending on your zone. Yeah, look at those. And these aren't for eating for me. These are for reusing next year. These aren't a good variety for eating. If you're wanting to save sunflower seeds for culinary purposes, you're going to want to look for a specific kind of sunflower for that. That's going to give you really nice large seeds that are worth the efforts because you'll have to crack a lot of seed shells to get not very much meat inside those seeds. That's the thing. I love sunflower seeds, but then like it's a lot of effort to crack them. Go ahead and split this again. Whoop. I've seen a lot of TikToks where people are basically cooking these sunflower heads as kind of like a meat kind of feel. Obviously they're vegetable, but that's kind of the idea. And they eat them like a hamburger or a steak or something like that. I have not tried that. In all honesty, I'm not super interested in doing that, but I know a lot of people would be interested in doing that. So that's another way to grow sunflowers, to repurpose them for something like that. Oh, I just love how beautiful this looks. Look at all those. Awesome. Okay, so I'm actually going to allow these to sit out for a few days to allow them to continue to dry. I don't want there to be any kind of moisture whatsoever. Anyway, so I'm going to allow them to dry for a few more days before I store them for next year, but they look in really good shape. I don't want any of this organic material mixed in with them when I go to store them, because it can add to rotting. And I will use the method just like what I did on my seed harvesting video, where I will do the paper towels to store them. And if you didn't catch that, you should definitely look up my seed harvesting video. It's last week. But it has a lot of good information about zinnias, celosia, amaranthus, and marigolds, if you haven't checked that out. All right, you guys. Okay, sorry we didn't get to the lilies today, but like I said, I want this pot right here to have the lilies in it. And this pot also has daffodils and allium in it as well. But I still have several sunflowers that are still drying to the point for seed. So I don't want to harvest all of this yet. It's a little too early and it'll be a waste. I'll miss out on all of those seeds. So I'm going to wait on that, give it another week or so, and then I'll come back and add in those lily bulbs. So stay tuned for that. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's video, getting some of these hardy annuals planted up, also harvesting some sunflower seeds and making plans for the lily bulbs. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.